What if the fallen angels were not merely rebellious warriors, but the architects of human desire? The story of Lucifer's fall has always been told as a myth of pride. The most beautiful angel, the morning star, who dared to rise against the Creator. A cosmic rebellion, an act of vanity and arrogance. But what if that isn't the whole story? What if, hidden between the forgotten lines of ancient traditions and the torn pages of forbidden gospels, lies another motive, not just power, but desire? Imagine the heavens as a perfect symphony, every seraph and cherub glowing in divine harmony. Yet among them, Lucifer carried something more, absolute beauty, the very reflection of divine light itself. A beauty that didn't just shine, but drew others in, captivating and seducing. Ancient rabbis once claimed that his fall wasn't merely an act of intellectual pride, but the corruption of desire in the heart of the first of angels. And so a disturbing whisper arises. Perhaps the first rebellion wasn't for the throne, but for the flesh. In apocryphal manuscripts like the Book of Enoch, there are accounts of angels who descended to earth. Fascinated by the daughters of men, they took women as wives, and from them were born giants. But the monks who translated these texts silently asked themselves, if angels can desire, if they can touch and conceive, what else might they plant among us? The terror that filled their monasteries was not only of the angels' swords, but of the invisible bed, the midnight visitor, the forbidden touch that seeps into dreams and steals innocence in silence. And here lies the true dilemma. If the watchers of Enoch gave in to desire, who guided them? Who inspired them? Occult traditions answer without hesitation, Lucifer himself. Not merely the rebel, but the architect of lust, the creator of a dark lineage, Incubi and Succubi, spirits forged not to topple kingdoms with war, but to corrode souls through the night, when the mind sleeps and the body surrenders. How many ancient cultures spoke of nocturnal entities? The Babylonians feared Lilith, who haunted men's dreams. The Greeks told stories of erotic demons, offspring of Aphrodite and Hades. In every corner of the world, the same figure emerges, a shadow that touches, seduces, enslaves. Could this be coincidence, or the echo of a single origin? Official theology chose silence, because to admit that the Prince of Fallen Light is also the Lord of Desire would be to admit that the fall wasn't merely spiritual, it was carnal. It would mean acknowledging that lust, embedded deep within humanity, may be Lucifer's oldest and deadliest weapon. Why does the Bible remain silent when the scandal involves human intimacy? The early church fathers knew the truth. The flesh is the most dangerous battlefield, more dangerous than war, more devastating than famine, because desire needs no armies. It only takes a whisper in the night, a stolen dream, a body surrendered without knowing. And what if this was Lucifer's plan all along? The rebellion doesn't begin at the walls of heaven, but in the human heart. Hell doesn't need epic battles when it can turn the bed into an altar. This is the haunting suspicion hidden in burned manuscripts, ignored testimonies, and secrets buried beneath centuries of censorship. Lucifer's fall may have been the first victory of desire over divine order. And the Incubi and Succubi? Nothing more than the secret offspring of this carnal rebellion. A buried truth within apocryphal texts suggests that Lucifer's fall was far more carnal than spiritual, and that the first children of lust may still walk among us today. What do you think about this? Share your thoughts in the comments. What if the official Gospels are nothing more than edited versions, carefully crafted to hide the sins of the angels themselves? The pages of the Bible as we know them were carefully selected. Some books were accepted, others rejected. Some canonized, others condemned to the flames. But in the forgotten corridors of history, there exist manuscripts that never reached the hands of the people. Texts that speak of angels, flesh, lust, and a truth religion dared not admit. The Book of Enoch, one of the most disturbing among the Apocrypha, describes something that Genesis only hints at in vague lines. The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and took them as wives. But Enoch goes further. He speaks of the watchers, angels who descended to earth. unable to resist their desire. They took mortal women, taught forbidden secrets, and from their union came monstrous offspring, the Nephilim. For centuries, this account was branded heresy. Why? Perhaps because it revealed something intolerable, that even angels, the celestial beings created to obey, could feel desire, that the fall wasn't just of one, but of many. Now picture this scene, beings made of pure light, consumed by the urge to touch human flesh, surrendering to forbidden pleasure. This doesn't sound like a mere metaphor, it sounds like an origin story. The medieval monks who copied these manuscripts feared in silence. What if incubi and succubi are the descendants of these unions? Spirits inheriting the carnal hunger of the first fallen angels. The canonical Bible cuts this story short. Genesis mentions it but never explains. The silence is deafening, as if the greatest revelation was swept under the altar. But why hide it? The answer is simple and terrifying. To admit that desire exists even in heaven would shatter the very idea of absolute purity. What if the greatest sins were never about war, but about desire? In ancient times, many believed that night demons were the children of these forbidden encounters, spirits, who inherited not only the power of angels, but also their uncontrollable lust. In Hebrew folklore, they were called shadim. In Mesopotamia, they bore other names. Always the same traits: desire, seduction, invasion of dreams. Within this context, Lucifer doesn't appear merely as the rebellious angel. He emerges as the instigator, the first to taste the fruit of temptation, the spark that ignited erotic chaos. He didn't just fall, he dragged with him a legion that craved more than the throne. They craved touch, pleasure, the human body. Here myth and reality blur, because night terrors, sleep paralysis, and the countless testimonies of men and women who awaken with strange marks have, for centuries, been interpreted as living proof. Incubi and succubi are not legends. They are the invisible legacy of the union between angels and humans. And so, a forbidden narrative takes shape. The sin of the flesh didn't begin in Eden, it began in heaven. The fall wasn't only spiritual, it was erotic. And the church's silence may be its loudest confession. If Enoch's watchers gave in to desire, who was the master that taught them to transgress? A forgotten answer points to Lucifer, not as a lone rebel, but as the true architect of lust. If this struck a chord with you, like this video, what if the true battlefield of hell isn't war, but the bed where someone sleeps? Centuries after the apocryphal texts were written, medieval Europe lived in constant fear. The flames of the Inquisition lit up nights of terror. But the darkness wasn't only outside. Inside monasteries, priests and monks whispered about experiences the church forbade even to name. In the silence of their cells, something visited them, something that didn't come with sword or fire, but with desire. The records are disturbing. Men awoke completely drained, as if something had stolen their very life force. Women described dreams, so vivid they felt real, heavy presences pressing on their bodies, whispers in their ears, forbidden pleasures that left visible marks by morning. These accounts spread from village to village, monastery to monastery, and they had two names: incubi, who preyed on women, and succubi, who hunted men. The most unsettling detail: many victims swore these beings had beautiful, almost angelic faces, but their eyes reflected no light, only a bottomless abyss. Who were they, really? Local legends claimed they were servants of one master, Lucifer, the fallen bearer of light, now the dark lord of fleshly desire. During the trials of the Inquisition, confessions ripped out under torture revealed a chilling pattern. Midnight visits, pacts of pleasure exchanged for power, mysterious marks left on the skin at dawn. To the church, it was witchcraft. To the victims, it was far too real. But here's the question that still echoes through the centuries. What if evil doesn't creep in through hatred, but through pleasure? The spiritual war wasn't fought on open battlefields. It was fought in lonely beds, between sleep and waking. The enemy didn't wield swords or wear armor. It used human desire as its weapon. The oldest monks described this as a sinister exchange. Succubi harvested the vital seed of men. Incubi carried that stolen essence to create dark offspring. an endless hidden cycle, one that fed Lucifer's throne. It was never just about pleasure. It was always about power. Could it all be mere superstition? Some modern scholars try to explain it away as sleep paralysis, hallucinations, or religious hysteria. But how do you explain the bruises, the strange pregnancies recorded in medieval times, and the testimonies of men and women who never met yet describe the exact same figures, the same rituals, the same haunting nights? The chroniclers of that age believed they were witnessing an organized network of hell itself. Every succubus and incubus an emissary, every victim a pawn in an invisible game. And at the top sat one who ruled not with armies or swords, but with the most irresistible weapon of all, desire. And this is where the tale turns even darker. In the forgotten archives, there are whispers of a throne not built of stone, but of flesh, sustained by the stolen life force of sleeping mortals. Blood and desire, the currency of an empire rising quietly in the shadows. What the Inquisitors didn't know, or perhaps knew and deliberately hid, was that these tales weren't just peasant folklore. They were connected to something far older, the pacts of the fallen angels, described in the Book of Enoch, and the erotic rebellion first sparked by Lucifer himself. A cursed manuscript speaks of a hidden throne, sustained by the blood of human desire, a throne that still beats in the shadows beneath history. Subscribe, because what comes next is even darker. What if the first woman in history wasn't Eve, but the mother of the demons of lust? In the collective imagination, Genesis introduces Eve as the first woman, shaped from Adam's rib. But among the oldest rabbinic texts, there circulates a forgotten version, a story that official theology rejected and branded as heresy. This woman wasn't created from a rib. She was formed from the same clay as Adam. Her name still echoes like a forbidden whisper, Lilith. According to ancient traditions, Lilith refused to be submissive. She rejected Adam's authority, defied her imposed role, and fled the Garden of Eden after speaking the secret name of God. In doing so, she was transformed into a creature of the night, a woman free, yet eternally cursed. This is where her story collides with the origins of demonic lust. In Kabbalistic writings, Lilith is said to have forged a pact in the darkness. And who welcomed her outside of Eden? The very fallen angel who had once challenged the heavens, Lucifer. Hidden traditions suggest their union was not merely symbolic, it was carnal. Together, they birthed unseen offspring, the very first succubi, spirits born from Lilith's rebellion and Lucifer's insatiable desire. This forgotten version is terrifying because it reverses the narrative. The original sin, long attributed to Eve, may not have been humanity's first act of transgression. Before Eve ever touched the forbidden fruit, Lilith had already lain with the Prince of Darkness himself. Desire, therefore, did not begin with the fruit, but with a forbidden pact. Imagine this moment as a dark painting. On one side, the illuminated Eden, rivers flowing, trees standing in perfect harmony. On the other, the barren desert, where Lilith wanders beneath the moonlight, and there she meets the fallen bearer of light. Two exiles united not by obedience but by desire, the birth of a night-born lineage, sealed not with blessing but with curse. The texts of the Zohar, the cornerstone of Kabbalah, describe Lilith as the queen of the abyss, a bidded mother of demons who prey on sleeping men. According to Jewish legend, Lilith roamed the night, draining the life force of newborns or seducing men through dreams. She was the ruler of the succubi, her dark progeny. But what if all of this were true? What if Eden wasn't just the beginning of life, but the dawn of eternal lust? During the Middle Ages, Lilith's legend was so feared that monks crafted protective amulets to keep her away from homes. She wasn't seen as mere mythology, but as a real and dangerous force, always lurking in the shadows. And there's something even more disturbing. Some texts claim Lilith never stopped reigning. While Eve became the mother of the living, Lilith became the mother of the spiritually dead, ruling a parallel invisible empire, not with swords or armies, but with the human body itself as the battlefield. Thus, Lucifer's throne does not rise alone. At his side stands the Queen of the Abyss, ruling beside him. The Incubi and Succubi are the direct heirs of that first forbidden, or pact, the lingering echo of a union that has endured through the centuries. Lilith's figure represents more than rebellion. She embodies the transformation of desire into a weapon. And if the very first woman refused submission, perhaps she and Lucifer together founded the oldest dynasty of carnal spirits. Hidden rabbinic texts speak of a king of lust, Lilith's secret consort, whose name appears only in forbidden magical formulas, being directly bound to Lucifer's throne. Share this with someone who needs to see what was kept hidden. What if a single hidden name was the key to understanding? How Lucifer rules over human desire. Among burned scrolls and forgotten grimoires, one name appears again and again, whispered in forbidden circles: Asmodeus. To some, he's nothing more than a demonic legend, but to those who dared to seek the truth, he is lust incarnate, a direct servant of Lucifer, a prince of hell who commands not armies of fire, but legions of desire. Ancient Jewish traditions mention him. In the Book of Tobit, a text rejected by many councils, Asmodeus appears as the evil spirit who slays 7 husbands of Sarah before their marriages can be consummated. The most chilling detail: he didn't strike out of hatred, but out of desire. He wanted Sarah for himself. This story doesn't just portray a jealous spirit. It reveals his purpose: to corrupt sacred unions, to destroy intimacy, to twist love into ruin. But who really was Asmodeus? In occult circles, he wasn't seen as a lone spirit. He was revered and feared as the king of succubi and master of incubi, the vital link connecting Lilith, the queen of the abyss, to Lucifer's throne. While Lilith birthed and ruled the nocturnal hordes, Asmodeus was their general, the one who spread the pacts of lust throughout the world. In medieval grimoires, such as the Ars Goetia, Asmodeus is depicted crowned, riding a dragon, carrying the torch of erotic fire. His title? Prince of Lust. Not merely a symbolic figure, but the living embodiment of the force that drags men and women into the abyss of pleasures that ultimately consume them. Why did the church suppress these names, if they were only legends? The answer may be darker than anyone suspects. Because names hold power. To speak the name Asmodeus was to open a door, a direct link to spirits of the flesh. Perhaps the church didn't forbid it to protect theology, but to shield the faithful from an invisible pact. Alchemists, however, did not obey. Some manuscripts contain seals and symbols tied to Asmodeus. They believed this prince could grant not only pleasure, but also political power and great wealth. The price? The soul itself, surrendered piece by piece, night after night, with every visit from a succubus or incubus. Here lies the point of convergence. Lucifer never acts alone. His throne is upheld by key figures: Lilith, the mother of succubi; Asmodeus, the executor of lust. One rules through seduction, the other through contracts. Together they maintain an invisible pact that spans centuries, repeating itself in every haunting dream, every desire that enslaves, every passion that destroys. The most terrifying part: in certain esoteric traditions, Asmodeus doesn't appear as humanity's enemy at all. On the contrary, he is called the friend of pleasures, a dangerous friend who offers without asking, but collects without warning. Immediate pleasure, eternal loss. Thus, the forbidden name has crossed the centuries, hidden within magical formulas, rabbinic legends and texts burned by the Inquisition. But its echo still lives on. And every time human desire spirals out of control, every time lust tears apart families and kingdoms, the ancients whisper, Asmodeus still reigns. A hidden seal, etched into alchemical scrolls, directly connects Asmodeus to Lucifer's throne, revealing that lust is not merely a sin, but the foundation of a spiritual empire. Have you ever wondered about this? Share your thoughts in the comments. What if the darkest secrets of the church weren't in human sins, but in forbidden encounters with the invisible? Throughout the Middle Ages, the church established itself as the guardian of morality and the sacred. But behind the stained glass windows and towering cathedrals, there are stories that rarely reached the public, erased testimonies, sealed archives, forbidden documents. Among them, a recurring theme, attacks by incubi and succubi on monks, nuns, and even priests. In the hidden diaries of convents, we find terrifying accounts. Young nuns wrote of nightly presences that enveloped them in pleasure and terror. Some believed these were spiritual trials. Others spoke with certainty they were succubi, servants of Lilith, sent to corrupt the purity of their vows. Monks, for their part, recorded intimate confessions of carnal, dreams so vivid they could not be mere illusions. What was most disturbing? Many of these accounts came with marks on the body, scratches, bruises, even bite-like impressions. How to explain it? To the science of the time, impossible. To faith, far too dangerous. The Church's chosen path, silence. And here arises the question that won't be silenced. Why is the institution that fears desire most also the one that hides its traces the most? Behind the scenes, however, silence was never absolute. Within the Vatican, secret exorcism rituals were developed, designed not merely to expel common demons, but specifically to confront spirits of lust. These rituals described long vigils, endless prayers, exhausting fasts. But they also included conjuration formulas never revealed to the public. The Rituale Romanum, the Church's official exorcism manual, reached us only in edited versions. Historians with access to earlier copies report passages about nocturnal spirits, later suppressed. Why? Because admitting the existence of incubi and succubi would mean acknowledging that even the chaste and the holy are not safe from the corruption of desire. And if this were revealed, all theology surrounding purity and sacrifice would collapse. How could one explain that even the consecrated, locked away in monasteries, could be visited by beings of flesh and desire? But silence has consequences. Across centuries of censorship, thousands suffered in secret. Every nightmare was labeled temptation. Every nightly visitation, spiritual weakness. Guilt became heavier than the attack itself. And this weight was wielded as a tool of control. Still, some priests dared to record it. In the apostolic archives of the Vatican, ancient reports describe exorcisms where nuns shouted unknown names, calling upon Lilith, Asmodeus, and even Lucifer himself. It was as if these names were etched into the depths of the human subconscious, or as if the spirits whispered them directly into the ears of their victims. The question becomes inevitable. Did the Church remain silent out of fear of scandal, or was there something more? Could it be that on some level, acknowledging the actions of these beings would mean admitting that Lucifer still rules through desire, even within sacred walls? Within the secret archives, a classified document describes specific rituals against incubi and suggests that Lucifer's pact runs far deeper than anyone dared to admit. Like if any part of this made you uneasy, what if desire wasn't just temptation, but an invisible pact signed in the blood of dreams? At the heart of the Renaissance, when Europe was being reborn through science and art, another flame burned quietly, the fire of forbidden magic. Beneath public libraries, in chambers hidden behind heavy curtains, circulated grimoires, books of sorcery that promised to open doors to hidden power. Among alchemical formulas and angelic invocations, there were rituals so disturbing that even the boldest occultists hesitated to copy them. They were the rites of communion with the spirits of lust. In these texts, such as the Ars Goetia and the Liber Juratus Honori, appeared descriptions of nocturnal pacts that bound men and women directly to the throne of Lucifer. The contract was simple, yet deadly. Surrender a portion of vital energy in exchange for pleasure, influence, or knowledge. The intermediaries were always the same: incubi and succubi, messengers of Lilith and Asmodeus, loyal servants of the bearer of fallen light. One of the most often described rituals began with drawing a circle on the ground, not for protection, but as an invitation. The practitioner had to pronounce the forbidden name, sometimes Asmodeus, sometimes even Lucifer, and leave a drop of blood as a signature. The price wasn't immediate, but it began that very night. The succubus or incubus would come, first in dreams, then in flesh. The pleasure offered was intoxicating, almost divine. But each encounter drained life little by little, until the initiate no longer belonged to themselves. What if desire isn't temptation, but an invisible contract binding us to hell? Exorcist monks who gained access to these grimoires called them traps of the flesh. They believed demons weren't seeking pleasure alone, but a spiritual legal bond. Every drop of blood, every voluntary surrender, every nocturnal climax was a clause signed in a contract that could never be undone. And why would anyone accept such a pact? The power promised was irresistible. Chronicles record nobles and kings who allegedly forged alliances with spirits of lust to dominate enemies, conquer lovers, or preserve their youth. One dark example is tied to the French queen Catherine de' Medici, accused by her opponents of consorting with succubi to secure her political influence. Perhaps mere slander, perhaps the echo of forgotten rites. But the most sinister accounts do not speak of kings or queens. They speak of ordinary people, peasants seeking wealth, young men and women seeking pleasure, magicians seeking knowledge. Many vanished after only a few months. Others went mad, whispering forbidden names until their dying breath. And here lies the disturbing detail. These rituals never demanded blood alone. They demanded consent. It wasn't enough to be attacked. You had to accept. Even unconsciously, even in a dream, the succubus or incubus needed permission, willing surrender, for the contract to become valid. In this way, desire wasn't just a weapon, it was the very signature of the pact. In hidden archives, there are descriptions of how to recognize someone who had taken part in such rites. Eyes always weary, skin pale, a restless unease that never let them sleep in peace. They were called married to the night, voluntary prey, captives of a contract that could never be broken. One unfinished manuscript, cut off mid-sentence, reveals the most chilling truth. Those who surrender in sleep, awaken possessed. Subscribe. The truth doesn't end here. What if entire empires had fallen, not by the sword, but by the whisper of a demon in the bed? Power has always been the target of lust, not just the craving of the flesh, but the hunger for thrones, for gold, for glory. And the spirits of the night learned early that flesh is the doorway to politics. While kings clashed on the battlefield, succubi and incubi moved in the bedchamber, shaping decisions, tilting empires, shattering bloodlines. In medieval accounts, Christian kings and Muslim sultans alike were described as possessed by invisible lovers. Some chroniclers spoke of rulers abandoning wars, descending into madness, or becoming unable to produce heirs, as if a shadow had severed the continuity of entire dynasties. Here, desire was not pleasure alone. It was a weapon of silent destruction. In ancient Rome, there were whispers of emperors who locked themselves away for entire nights, only to emerge exhausted, pale with tear-filled eyes. Writers like Suetonius hinted that invisible forces were behind the downfall of leaders who, in theory, held all the power in the world. And in the Middle Ages, we find the most infamous case, the story of Pope Sylvester II, accused of keeping a pact with a succubus named Meridiana. It was said she brought him forbidden knowledge, aided his inventions, and strengthened his rise within the church. The grim detail: Meridiana demanded absolute fidelity, and Sylvester, according to legend, died tormented, convinced he was eternally damned. What if lust is not just a personal sin, but the very tool Lucifer uses to control kings, and even popes? During the Renaissance, entire courts were rumored to be seduced by the invisible. Queens were accused of enchanting kings with spells of pleasure. And whenever a political decision seemed irrational, whispers followed. It was the succubus who visited him last night. The spirits of lust did not need to attack armies. They only had to corrupt one ruler, poison his will, ruin his lineage. A battle won in the bedchamber could decide the fate of thousands on the battlefield. The invisible contract between the throne and the demon of the night was more powerful than any political alliance. And don't think it ended there. Even today, leaders and public figures speak, behind closed doors, of recurring nightmares, of nocturnal presences, of a force dragging them into the abyss of desire. The same unsettling detail always returns, the same descriptions found in centuries-old manuscripts, the same chill on the skin, the same pleasure mingled with terror. Coincidence? Or is the same invisible army that toppled kings still at work, shaping our leaders from the shadows? In the end, seduction is not just a sin, it is a weapon so subtle no one sees it, yet so devastating it has already brought down entire empires. Forgotten accounts claim that in certain coronation rites, succubi themselves were invoked to secure power. But whom did the crowned king truly serve? The people, or the bearer of fallen light? Tag someone who would dare to watch until the end. What if incubi and succubi were not merely servants of Lucifer, but fragments of his very essence? Through the corridors of time, there are texts that never reached the pulpits. Banned books, erased gospels, oral traditions suffocated under the weight of orthodoxy. In them, the origin story of the spirits of lust takes on darker and far more intimate contours. According to the Book of Enoch, the fallen angels did more than teach forbidden arts. They also lay with the daughters of men. From this union came the Nephilim, giants who corrupted the earth. But a more radical interpretation, hidden in Kabbalistic commentaries, suggests the Nephilim were not only children of flesh. They were spiritual seeds, fragments of angelic desire itself. From that act, the first spirits of lust were born, living, shadows that wander in search of bodies and souls. In forgotten Gnostic texts, there are passages describing Lucifer not as a solitary angel, but as a divided flame. When he fell, he did not fall alone. Parts of his essence shattered, and each fragment gave birth to a legion. Incubi and succubi, therefore, would be living shards of Lucifer's desire, drops of lust, crystallized into spirit form. What if every nocturnal visit is not just an attack, but a reunion with Lucifer's own fall? The rabbinic tradition of Lilith, the first woman, echoes the same idea. Cast out of Eden for refusing submission, she joined with fallen angels, giving birth to legions of succubi. Yet some Kabbalistic manuscripts suggest something even more unsettling. Lilith did not merely create these spirits. She herself was Lucifer's consort, his feminine reflection, the spiritual mother of all demons of desire. Within Gnostic circles, there were whispers of a secret alliance, lust as the bridge between the material world and the infernal, desire as the invisible cord tying every human being to the realm of darkness. No matter how holy, no matter how chaste, all carry this flame within, and through that flame, incubi and succubi find their passage. This perhaps explains the silence of the church. To acknowledge these truths would be to admit that the fall is not only in the heavens, but within every human body. It would be to confess that in closing one's eyes to sleep, each person opens the door to the same pact that began with Lucifer's rebellion. And there is more. A fragment of the Gospel of the Egyptians, banned in the councils, claims that at the end of days, the final great assault on humanity will not come with fire or sword, but with desire. A wave of spirits of lust will cover the earth, and those who cannot resist will not merely be seduced, they will be possessed. Clerics who studied these texts in secret warned that we are moving ever closer to that reality. The rise of spiritual exhaustion, the normalization of lust, the hollowing out of the sacred, all are signs that the invisible army is already among us. But there is an even more unsettling revelation. Some texts suggest we are not merely victims, but heirs. That part of humanity already carries in its blood the mark of Lucifer and Lilith. If that disturbed you, then it served its purpose. Leave a comment. What if the demons of lust were not only outside of us, but flowing in our very blood? We've reached the point where the pieces begin to align. From Eden to the Vatican, from Renaissance grimoires to apocryphal gospels, a red thread of desire runs through human history. This is no coincidence, no isolated legend. It is the mark of a far deeper pact, the invisible inheritance of Lucifer. If incubi and succubi are fragments of the fall, if Lilith is the mother of night spirits, and if the church itself has kept silent about the testimonies of forbidden desire, then the truth is unsettling. We are not merely victims of these encounters. We are part of them. Dream accounts, marks on the body, blood pacts, possessions that span centuries all point to a single reality. Humanity carries the doorway within. Desire is no accident. It is the thread that binds us. And every time we surrender to it, consciously or unconsciously, we tighten the bond with the one who fell carrying the flame of lust. What if evil is not in heaven or in hell, but in the human heart, an inheritance from the very beginning? Ancient texts suggest that in the end, the invisible army won't even need to attack, for desire will become so normalized, so banal, that every man and woman will already be bearers of the pact. Hell will not need to descend to earth. Earth itself will become hell. This is the revelation many sought to bury, that succubi and incubi are not merely nocturnal visitors, but living symbols of our divided nature. Humanity born between light and shadow, between obedience and rebellion, between spirit and flesh. The most disturbing claim in some Gnostic writings is that Lucifer's fall was inevitable. Not a mistake, not an accident, but part of a greater plan. As if the Creator allowed this dark flame to reveal something about us. If that is true, then desire is not just temptation, it is revelation. And so comes the final, most unsettling question. If lust is the invisible pact that binds us to Lucifer, can we ever escape? Or were we born already marked by that blood? The final images are clear. A humanity asleep, visited in secret, marked by both pleasure and terror, while silence echoes in altars and palaces alike. All carry the inheritance. All are tempted. Some resist, others surrender, but none are immune. And perhaps this is the darkest truth of all. There is no escape from desire. It is the fire that burns in every glance, in every dream, in every silence of the night. And what if it's all real? What if every time we close our eyes, we are not sleeping, but signing once again the contract of the fall? If it is real, write your truth below.